Hey everybody, welcome back to Sounds Like a Drum, Cadence Independent Media Production. If you're just joining us, what we do is tuning and tips and tricks and hacks and myth busting. And today, it's tuning, straight up. We're going to talk about big bass drums, no muffling, and we're going to experiment with the intervals between the heads to figure out how to get a good sound out of this type of vibe. Now, this is a thing that I've done a bunch with smaller bass drums, 18s, things like that for jazz and low volume situations, stuff like that. And I haven't really had an opportunity recently or really at all to do something like this with a much larger, more rock-oriented bass drum where we're talking about no muffling, no pillows, no felt strips, nothing. So that's basically the rabbit hole we're going to go down today. Thanks again to Promo by D'Addario for being our presenting sponsor. Today we're doing the Michael Carvin sticks again because they're awesome. And what we're doing here is actually spurned a little bit also by an earlier video we did where we were experimenting with different bass drum heads with a ton of muffling inside to see if your choice actually really mattered. It was a couple of videos ago. And there was a big response to the clear G1, single ply, clear, nothing fancy drum head, and a lot of people were surprised that they liked it so much. So it seemed like a good opportunity to go even further in that direction, take everything out of the drum, throw a coated G1 on the front, and think sort of in the Keith Carlock realm of a normal size or like a pop-sized bass drum, but no muffling of any kind. We're playing off the head. We're going for resonance and tone and kind of boomy attack, that kind of thing. That also sits well in groove-based music, you know. Maybe not for like a stadium gig, but you know, most of the things you do, there are chances to use this kind of sound. If you're curious about the sound that we're talking about here in context, you can listen to the Krantz Carlock Lefebvre record, or you can listen to Rudder. There are a lot of things that Keith played on, and he's not the only person that uses this kind of tuning, but he seems to be the one that most people know of when it comes to this kind of sound. Now, specifically today, we're not just putting these heads on here and just kind of running with it. We want to know about pitch intervals in the same way that we've gone deep on snare drums and toms to see what happens when the top is tighter and the bottom's looser, the top is super tight, you know, all those sorts of things. And so we're going to do 3 variations today. We're going to do my normal move with my smaller bass drum, which is batter head tighter than a Reso, around somewhere between a minor third and a major third. We're going to do same exact pitch between the two, so I'm going to lower the higher one. And then for the last one, I'm going to raise the Reso up that same minor, major third-ish range and sort of just inspect the differences between them and see which makes most sense in this kind of miking situation. Now, just as an aside, there have been people mentioning things about studio concepts versus live concepts in terms of tuning and sound, and I just want to say unequivocally, I don't differentiate between the two. I don't have a set of things that are for one and a set of things that are for the other. Every situation is different, every live situation is different, and every studio situation is different, so it stands to reason that you have to adapt to the moment. And you might show up with a tuning like this that's not working and you have to change it, and it might be something different or it might be perfect for that day. So don't think in terms of studio techniques for getting your sound versus live techniques. They're all fine in the right situation, and every single one is different. Now today we're using a 22-inch bass drum, Ben's Pearl Masters Custom, and it is a big drum. It makes a big sound all the time, no matter what we do. And that is also true today. It's making a very, very big sound. So first off, my sort of like following my ear tuning with this drum is what we're going to do, and that is the tighter batter, looser Reso, and we're just going to go through single hits and a couple of grooves to sort of put it in a little bit of context. Now that sounds beautiful to me. It's more or less what I was expecting, which is to say similar to my 18, but lower, bigger, more sustain, a whole lot louder also. And this is Again, just like any other sound, it's not for everything, but when it's the right thing, it's really, really special and super duper fun. Now, what we're feeling with having the batter tighter and the Reso looser is a firm sort of strike on the batter head when I hit it. It doesn't feel mushy or like it's moving too much. It's like it's got a point on it. And then we're getting our tone from the other side. And it results in a kind of a beautiful thing where you play it softly and it's got a very sort of pillowy thing to it, almost like if you were feathering in jazz, that kind of thing. And then the harder you hit it, the more aggressive it gets. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger and grows in a really beautiful kind of organic way, which is why I would use this sort of tuning regardless of the context that it's in. Next up, we're going to drop the batter down to match the Reso. So this will be the lowest kind of collective tuning of everything. Lots of people say that tuning both heads to the same pitch means it's the most resonant sound. And I'm not here to say that that's true or that that's not true. I don't find that to be true. I find that if we're talking about resonance in terms of the largest amount of sound coming out of the instrument, offset pitches always do that for me no matter what drum it is. I can't think of a single time that I've ever tuned a drum to exactly the same pitch on both sides and been happier with that than changing one of them a little bit. But this is an unusual situation, so I don't know what's going to happen, but they're down there. Here we go. First thing I notice, more attack where I'm sitting and a little bit different of a decay. It's a little bit longer and it's taking a little bit longer to get to the note basically that's going to come out of the drum. And that's the thing you get when you have offset pitches is those two heads work together quicker. One of them is accelerating the resonance of the other one by vibrating more quickly. So when you have them the same, they're going to get where they're going, but neither of them is pushing the other one toward getting to the end. So basically, there's no acceleration. They're just sort of rolling to it, and then they get there. This feels a little more like a concert bass drum kind of thing to me in terms of that growth and almost like the attack and the note are separated a little bit. A little less functional for me, but this is just choices. They're totally, all of them are an option. If you like it, great. Choose your own adventure. Now, last one. Let's raise up the front head. This is gonna mirror what most people, I'm gonna say most people do with their toms, which is that the Reso tends to be for modern music a little bit higher than the batter. And then, you know, for me, for some other things like jazz and things where I'm trying to emulate hand drums or where I have to play quietly, I'll flip that and have the batter be a little bit tighter and then ultimately generate the same pitch. So theoretically, this should generate the same pitch as the first tuning, but the feel is going to be different because we have less tension on the side I'm striking and more tension on the far side. Lo and behold, the thing that I thought was going to happen did happen, which is that the sustain is longer. There's more tone, there's more note, which is similar to what happens to a tom when you do this. And at the same time, the feel on this side is a little bit sluggish because of the lowered tension, which isn't a problem necessarily, but it's a choice. And everybody's tastes, especially for the actual feel of connecting with the instrument, is totally up to them. So this is another one of those things where trying them all for yourself, if this is an experiment that you want to do, is definitely worth doing. And I haven't that much, so this is a good experiment for me as well, because some of these might be a better choice for certain situations. But ultimately, I think that the most functional thing for this type of scenario is to have the batter side a little bit tighter to get the attack and the tone more immediate, and then have the Reso a little bit looser so that you can have some rumble underneath it after that initial tone has jumped out of the drum. Now, bullet point number 1 about this type of tuning, it's come up in other videos and it's very, very true right now. This is going to be a challenging tuning if you're burying the beater. In the same way that burying your stick in your toms it's a choice, but if you're going after tone and you're going after sustain and you're trying to get a big sound, you need to get the implement away from the instrument as quickly as you can so that it can do what it's going to do. Anything pressed into the head is going to shorten that, whether it's a pillow on the inside or your beater on the outside. So if it's your first time messing around with this kind of tuning, and I remember mine vividly, it is real weird if you haven't done it before. It feels really strange. The pedal vibrates. Your foot feels weird. It kind of feels like standing on a subway, by the side of the subway. It rumbles for a long time, and it's a little unnerving if you're used to the thing kind of just going bap and being done. But it's also a really great opportunity to practice getting off the bass drum head, even if you only do it some of the time. Occasionally I do that such painful exercise of taking the spring off the bass drum pedal and trying to just use the rebound the way you would with a stick to play the drum to kind of like strengthen the ankle and get your reflexes going. And it's much more fun to do that on this kind of tuning because it is actually rebounding. And it's a little bit easier too, makes you feel a little better about yourself. All right, now back to back. All 3 of those, and this is particularly a video where you're going to want to wear headphones. You're not going to hear any of the really fundamental components of this sound through, laptop speakers or anything like that. A good stereo, sure, but headphones is really where it's at for this because we're talking about incredibly low frequencies. Like some of them are difficult to hear even acoustically. The walls are rattling here. So there you have it. You can do a 22 wide open, you can do a 24 wide open, or an 18, but it is worth noting that your intervallic choices are going to define your experience to a degree, and they're going to define the sound in the mics and to the audience to a pretty large degree. So I invite you, try it out, throw a felt strip on one of them, throw a felt strip on the other one if it's a little too bananas for the situation you're in. But it's absolutely worth it and a super fun sound, particularly if you're playing by yourself, because it's a big sound and like getting into it. Like I played way more examples today than I meant to because I just wanted to keep playing. Thanks again for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that little notification button down below so that you get our notifications. We are dropping these videos every Tuesday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks again to ProMark by D'Addario for being our presenting sponsor. And please go over to the Patreon and check out some ancillary footage from this and some thoughts and some just extra playing, things like that we were doing as we were changing things up, some things that we talked about, that sort of stuff. And lastly, please share your experience with wide open bass drums, whether they worked out or not, and what heads you might have used for that also, because this with, say, like an EMAD or any combination of heads is going to be a completely different experience. So again, it's an adventure, and you can really do whatever you want, so go out and try it.